Welcome to Audit the Audit, where we sort out the who and what and the right and wrong of police interactions. This episode covers the First Amendment, unlawful seizures, and disorderly conduct, and is brought to us by Delaware Online. Be sure to check out the description below and give them the credit that they deserve. On March 11th, 2022, 54-year-old Jonathan Gesford was standing in a grassy area next to the shoulder of a road in Cheswold, Delaware, holding up a small cardboard sign that read "Radar Ahead" when he was approached by Corporal Stephen Douglas and Trooper Nicholas Gallo of the Delaware State Police. Shortly after the officers approached him, Mr. Gesford began to film the encounter.
I am engaged in a First Amendment activity that is protected.
I want to take the sign. If
you are not.
Listen,
you are not taking
sign,
my property.
Listen to me. If you put it,
you are not taking my property. What's your badge number?
My badge number's right there.
Articulate.
No, I'm not going to articulate.
Am I in detention? Are you detaining me? What are you detaining me for?
What?
What are you detaining?
You're disrupting traffic.
I'm not disrupting anything. I am engaged in a First Amendment.
I
am not. You're a liar. You are a liar. I have never been in traffic. Never. So you can shut that up. I'm on the side of the road, legally parked, with a sign which is protected by the First Amendment. So you can. I'm disrupting nothing. I'm going to do it right here where I'm at.
So
I'm not.
Why do I have drivers coming up to me telling me that you're jumping out in traffic?
Because apparently they're erroneous. I don't give a what somebody else says. What did you witness? Nothing of the sort. So keep your to yourself, pal.
You're very angry. Why so hostile?
Because you people are come up here. I got a man trying to steal my property, telling me he's not going to let me do something that's constitutionally protected. No, I'm not. What's the statute for that? You have no authority whatsoever over me because I've committed no crime.
You're not saying you committed a crime.
You're not saying I committed a crime and you just tried to steal my property.
I didn't try to steal it.
Yes, you did. You said I am taking. You have nothing. You're not going to not allow me because you have no authority to stop me. Period. No authority to stop me.
I'm not going to let you do it, sir. You wanted our attention. You got it. I
don't want your attention. Go the away, road pirate.
You wanted our attention.
Go away, road pirates.
It's a shame. You got to bring your kid out here on the side.
I'm teaching my kid not to respect pieces of crap like you guys are.
You're jumping in traffic.
You keep saying jumping in traffic. When did you witness this offense? Don't you came to me. I can go right over here.
I'm not going to let you go on the road, sir.
I'm not on the road. I'm not on the road.
You were on the shoulder.
I'm not blocking the roadway. I am not in the roadway. I haven't jumped in the roadway. No, I'm not. No, I'm not.
Corporal Douglas and Trooper Gallo claim that Mr. Gesford is disrupting traffic because drivers are slowing down to see his sign. But Mr. Gesford asserts that he is engaged in a constitutionally protected activity. According to Section 1301 of Title 11 of the Delaware Code, quote, "A person is guilty of disorderly conduct when the person intentionally causes public inconvenience, annoyance, or alarm to any other person, or creates a risk thereof by obstructing vehicular or pedestrian traffic." Although it is possible that if Mr. Gesford was actually jumping into traffic as the officers claimed, he could be found guilty of violating this statute, the statute prohibits obstructing traffic, not disrupting or distracting it. So it is likely that a court would conclude traffic could not be obstructed by someone holding a sign on the side of the road. Furthermore, Mr. Gesford's sign constituted written speech subject to First Amendment protections, and therefore Mr. Gesford could not be held criminally liable for the content of his speech unless it fell into one of the limited categories of unprotected speech outlined by the Supreme Court, such as obscenity, defamation, fraud, incitement, and speech integral to criminal conduct. In the 1949 case of Giboney versus Empire Storage Company, the Supreme Court held that the First Amendment does not protect speech or writing used as an integral part of conduct in violation of a valid criminal statute. Although neither the state of Delaware nor the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, which has jurisdiction over Delaware, has ruled on a similar issue, courts in other jurisdictions have generally determined that signaling other drivers to warn them of upcoming speed traps is a constitutionally protected activity, and rejected arguments that such speech is unprotected because it facilitates illegal speeding activity. For instance, in the 2014 case of Ellie versus City of Ellisville, the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Missouri concluded that flashing headlights to warn drivers of upcoming speed traps was, quote, "expressive conduct that sends a message to bring one's driving in conformity with the law, and therefore did not illegally interfere with a police investigation. Similarly, the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Wisconsin noted in the 2019 case of Obrecht versus Splinter that, quote, although the law is far from clear on this issue, an individual who flashed his headlights to warn of an upcoming speed trap, now quoting again, at most may have prevented the State Patrol from apprehending a few would-be speeders. The court then implied that the potential crime at issue was not sufficient for the government to rationalize its infringement on speech, citing the 2002 case of Ashcroft versus Free Speech Coalition, where the Supreme Court stated that, quote, the prospect of crime by itself does not justify laws suppressing protected speech. Although Mr. Gesford was holding a sign on the side of the road rather than flashing the headlights of a vehicle, these cases indicate that a court could agree that Mr. Gesford's sign constituted protected speech under the First Amendment, and that he accordingly could not be criminally prosecuted for simply holding it. However, because Mr. Gesford's actions did not seem to fall within the prohibitions of the Delaware Disorderly Conduct Statute, it is likely that a court would conclude that he could not be convicted of obstructing traffic without needing to address the First Amendment issue.
Oh, so when you pull people over with radar, you're disrupting traffic because they're slowing down. That's your logic? Get the out of here.
That's fine. You can stand right there. But I'm not
Stand where I want. You ain't gonna stop me because you have no authority to stop me. Put your hands on me. You see what this did? You see what he did? Don't put your hands on me. Do not put... Give me my property back. You piece of... Give me my property back. You see this? You tyrant piece of... You tyrant... What are your badge numbers?
Step back, okay?
No,
Don't walk up
no,
to me
you
like
stole
that.
my property.
Did you see anything in my hands?
You
stole your
piece
property?
of...
Have a nice day.
You assaulted me standing right here, you
If
piece
he
of...
statute, he would understand that's not assault. That's
Nicholas,
not assault.
you attacked me, forcibly
What
removed
statute
my
is that?
property.
What statute is that?
It's called suck my cop.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mr. Gesford argues that Trooper Gallo assaulted him by taking his sign and tearing it up. According to Section 611 of Title 11 of the Delaware Code, an individual is guilty of assault in the third degree, which is the lowest level assault charge in the state, when the individual intentionally or recklessly causes physical injury to another person. Likewise, Section 601, which defines the offense of offensive touching, states that, quote, a person is guilty of offensive touching when the person intentionally touches another person, either with a member of his or her body or with any instrument, knowing that the person is thereby likely to cause offense or alarm to such other person. Although Mr. Gesford instructed the troopers not to touch him, it is not clear from the available footage whether Trooper Gallo made any physical contact with Mr. Gesford while grabbing the sign from him. If contact was made, it is possible that a court could conclude that the act constituted assault or offensive touching. On the other hand, if Trooper Gallo did not make any physical contact with Mr. Gesford's body, it is likely that a charge of criminal mischief would be more appropriate. Under Section 811 of Title 11 of the Delaware Code, quote, a person is guilty of criminal mischief when the person intentionally or recklessly damages tangible property of another person. Here, Trooper Gallo clearly and intentionally damaged Mr. Gesford's sign, so it is possible that a court would conclude that his conduct constituted a violation of the statute. However, under subsection C of the criminal mischief statute, quote, it is a defense that the defendant has a reasonable ground to believe that the defendant has a right to engage in the conduct, and a court could potentially conclude that as a police officer, Trooper Gallo had reasonable grounds to believe he had the authority to confiscate and destroy the sign. Still, under the Fourth Amendment, law enforcement officers may only seize the property of another when such conduct is quote-unquote reasonable. In the 1984 case of U.S. versus Jacobson, the Supreme Court noted that, quote, a seizure of property occurs when there is some meaningful interference with an individual's possessory interests in that property, and that although taking and destroying personal property is a seizure, such seizures are only unlawful if they are unreasonable. The court also explained that in order to assess the reasonableness of a seizure, courts, now quoting, must balance the nature and quality of the intrusion on the individual's Fourth Amendment interests against the importance of the governmental interests alleged to justify the intrusion. Here, Trooper Gallo and Corporal Douglas claim their interest is to prevent Mr. Gesford from quote-unquote distracting other drivers, but the interest they intruded prohibited on was Mr. Gesford's First Amendment right to freedom of speech, which the government may only restrict in certain narrowly defined circumstances. Accordingly, Mr. Gesford would have a strong argument that Trooper Gallo violated both his Fourth and First Amendment rights by destroying the sign.
All right, could you stop playing in traffic now?
I'm not playing in traffic, and you're getting a complaint, and you're getting a complaint, and I'm going home, making a new one up, and coming right back here.
Okay. And then we'll come back and
Stay out of the roadway.
I wasn't in the roadway, you piece of... You understand you just committed a crime. You stole my property. You had no authority whatsoever to do it. And you know it, and you know you up. Which troop are you operating out of, 9?
That's Troop 9.
Troop 9, you... I'm speaking to you, pork rind. Where are you operating out of so I can go now and file my complaint?
if you want to address me properly, I'll respond to your...
After the initial encounter, Mr. Gesford got in his vehicle and drove away. As he did so, he stuck his hand out the window and he flipped off the troopers, who then, according to dashcam footage, chased after him at speeds of more than 100 miles per hour in a 55-mile-per-hour zone to pull him over. After Mr. Gesford stopped his vehicle, Corporal Douglas approached the passenger side window.
Good afternoon, sir. Corporal Douglas, Delaware State Police. The reason I stopped you is you had your hand out the window with
So what?
finger.
So what? It's constitutionally protected speech.
Is the reason why you're doing that?
You're stopping me for constitutionally protected speech, right?
Because you had your hand out the window.
This is what I did. You got a problem with that?
Sir,
listen to me.
Go
That's
away.
called disorderly conduct.
No, it is not.
That is disorderly
That
conduct.
is called
If you are doing it out
freedom
in the
of speech.
If you are
No,
out in
no,
the public,
no,
you are out in the public and people see you.
No,
Sir,
it is
can I get your
not.
license,
Here's
please?
what's going to happen.
No,
License, please.
no.
Here's what's going to happen.
I want your supervisor, please.
I am the supervisor. I am the supervisor.
License,
And that's why
please.
I'm here.
I'm going to reach into my pocket and
You're
get my
fine.
license.
You're fine.
And I'm going to take you to
You're fine.
court.
But here's what I'm telling you. Take it to court. That's what I want you to do.
License,
So,
please.
but before we
Get
go
your
any
license.
farther, you're pulling me over for what?
Because
For
you had
disorderly conduct.
Because you had your finger
Disorderly
out the window.
conduct.
Corporal Douglas and Master Corporal Rayford Box claim that Mr. Gesford committed disorderly conduct by flipping them off. In addition to prohibiting obstructing traffic, Section 1301 of Title 11 of the Delaware Code, which is the disorderly conduct statute that we discussed earlier in this episode, also states that an individual is guilty of disorderly conduct if they intentionally cause public inconvenience, annoyance, or alarm to any other person, or creates a risk thereof by, now quoting, making an unreasonable noise or an offensively coarse utterance, gesture, or display, or addressing abusive language to any person present. However, as the Third Circuit Court of Appeals explained in the 2003 case of Johnson versus Campbell, quote, when the regulated conduct consists of speech, the statute must be carefully drawn or authoritatively construed to punish only unprotected speech and not be susceptible of application to protected expression. The court also cited the 1989 case of State versus White, where the Superior Court of Delaware, quote-unquote, authoritatively construed the statute to prohibit only so-called fighting words, or those which by their very utterance inflict injury or tend to incite an immediate breach of the peace, and ultimately concluded that, now quoting, therefore, when we read Section 1301, we must also read into it a restriction to punish only such speech that consists of fighting words. Now, while giving someone the middle finger is not pure speech, as the Supreme Court explained in the 1989 case of Texas versus Johnson, the protections of the First Amendment do not end at the spoken or written word, and, now quoting, conduct may be sufficiently imbued with elements of communication to fall within the scope of the First and 14th Amendments. In deciding whether particular conduct possesses sufficient communicative elements to bring the First Amendment into play, the court noted that the test was, quote, whether an intent to convey a particularized message was present, and whether the likelihood was great that the message would be understood by those who viewed it. Although the Supreme Court has not ruled specifically as to whether raising a middle finger constitutes protected speech, the gesture almost certainly satisfies the test for expressive conduct formalized in Texas versus Johnson, and courts that have reviewed the issue have generally determined that the middle finger is protected by the First Amendment. For instance, in the 2006 case of Corey versus Nassau, the United States District Court for the Western District of Pennsylvania, which lies in the Third Circuit, found that there was sufficient precedent to put the officer on notice that an individual's display of their middle finger did not constitute disorderly conduct, stating that, now quoting, "Numerous courts have recognized that the First Amendment right to be free from retaliation in response to constitutionally protected speech is clearly established, and, more specifically, that this right encompasses the right to gesture with the middle finger, and even use expletives directed towards a police officer, so long as the conduct does not constitute fighting words, and that a reasonable officer should know that it is constitutionally protected behavior." Now, although this precedent is not binding on Delaware, it does show that federal courts within the same circuit have recognized that giving the middle finger to an officer is constitutionally protected expression, and, as such, suggests that a court would conclude that the Delaware disorderly conduct statute did not criminalize Mr. Gesford's gesture.
Now, here's what's about to happen. You're about to be arrested again for resisting arrest.
No, I'm not resisting anything.
Yeah. Right now you're being detained.
For what?
You're being detained.
I told you why I stopped you already, sir.
For putting my middle finger up. That's correct?
No,
correct.
No, exactly.
Correct. The window.
Okay, let me get your ID.
Okay, you had your middle finger out the window. Okay, yes.
The next thing you do, we're going to take you in, we're going to tow the car, and we'll call social services for the kid.
Oh, so now you're threatening. Now you're threatening my child.
No, it's not a threat. It's a promise.
You're threatening my child now.
I'm telling you what's going to happen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
information.
I was alongside the road. Let me get you the ID because I'm going to take you to court and sue you.
Okay.
So I want to get this clear one more time. You pulled me over for a constitutionally protected activity, right?
I pulled you over because you had your finger.
Because I flipped you off because you stole my property.
Okay. Registration, insurance, please. You already know.
Can you close that door so the dog doesn't get out, please?
Yes.
You had no right to open my door.
Yes,
well, how are you going to hand us the
I can hand you the paperwork.
Okay.
So you.
The troopers issued Mr. Gesford a citation for improper use of a hand signal under Section 4157 of Title 21 of the Delaware Code, which outlines proper methods for giving hand and arm signals when turning, stopping, or decreasing speed in a vehicle without a turn signal or brake lights. But the charge was later dropped. On February 17, 2023, Mr. Gesford filed a federal lawsuit alleging several violations of his constitutional rights. And on September 1, 2023, Mr. Gesford accepted a $50,000 offer of judgment from Trooper Gallo, Corporal Douglas, and Master Corporal Box. According to Delaware Online, Mr. Gesford submitted a complaint to the Delaware State Police after the incident, and the officers were investigated by the department's Internal Affairs Unit. While Trooper Gallo was reprimanded for taking and destroying Mr. Gesford's sign, it was determined that the officers were acting in quote-unquote good faith in issuing the citation, and no disciplinary action was initiated against Corporal Douglas or Master Corporal Box. Overall, the Delaware troopers get an F for maintaining a hostile and unreasonable demeanor throughout the encounter and likely violating Mr. Gesford's First and Fourth Amendment rights multiple times by destroying his sign, ordering him to abandon his peaceful protest, and pulling him over and citing him for flipping them off. Additionally, one of the troopers' dash cams captured audio of two troopers discussing the lack of applicability of the improper hand signal statute when Mr. Gesford was first pulled over.
Hey, what? He stuck his middle finger out of the window.
Oh, okay.
What's that? What's?
You could lock him up for disorderly conduct. He probably won't go anywhere.
Nah, what's? Isn't it like a improper hand signal or something? Charge? No, I mean like if you stick your finger, I'm telling you, if you put your arm out the road with a middle finger, you could. That's like a. Isn't that? I'm pretty sure. You sure about that?
Likewise, Master Corporal Box's dash cam recorded him discussing the encounter with a supervisor and acknowledging that the traffic stop was unlawful and that the citation would be, quote-unquote, thrown out in court.
He came through, yelled at the window, and gave the finger as he was driving away. Dougie pulled him over and then brought him for hand gestures. The hand gesture, I said, that's pushing it.
You can't, I mean, he pulled him over for it, like giving him the middle finger.
Yeah, for giving him middle finger. So,
yeah, you can't do that. That'll get dropped.
Yeah, that's going to get thrown. I told him that's going to get thrown out, but it's just going, it's going to cause the problem.
This footage demonstrates the fact that the officers knew the citation they issued was not lawful, and that rather than acting in good faith, they likely cited Mr. Gesford in retaliation for his exercise of his First Amendment rights. Mr. Gesford gets an A, because although he was at times directing disrespectful speech and conduct towards the officers, he likely remained within the protections of the First Amendment throughout the encounter, and strongly advocated against the officers' multiple intrusions into his constitutional rights, both through his speech during the encounter, and with his decision to file a complaint and a lawsuit after the fact. This encounter demonstrates how officers can trample on the constitutional rights of citizens when they make decisions based on personal offense rather than their legal duties. And I commend Mr. Gesford for taking appropriate legal action to defend his right to engage in First Amendment protected speech and exposing these officers' actions to the public through his lawsuit. Let us know if there is an interaction or legal topic that you would like us to discuss in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out my second channel for even more police interaction content.